Jahmir Young is not human.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Jahmir Young showed last night that he is not human as he led the Maryland Terrapins to beat the Iowa Hawkeyes by one possession in a one-possession game that we have not won this year. We had been 0-5 in one-possession games up to this point. But Young carries the Terps to a second-half win against a very solid Iowa team, against a very well-rounded Iowa team, against a pretty deep Iowa team, a pretty well-balanced Iowa team, a team that could score a lot of points, of definitely a solid program and definitely a quality type of, I would say, a March Madness type of program, even if they don't make the dance. I don't think it's because they don't have the talent to. I just think it's because the Big Ten is a gauntlet and it's really hard to win games in the Big Ten. But what he is doing, Jahmir Young, isn't normal. We got to acknowledge this, and we got to really start talking about this. He is putting together one of the best Maryland player-led overall statistical season that has happened in Maryland basketball history. It's got to be up there among the greats with what he's doing. Now, we're not winning as many games, so it doesn't look as great, but what he is doing is not normal at all. I'm sure most of you guys saw, but if you missed it, he hit the game-winning shot, basically a buzzer beater for the Terps, to go up by 2 points. It was a tie game, and Jahmir Young had the ball, and it was an interesting defensive strategy by Iowa. It was about 21 seconds left, and they let him play 1v1. Good set by Kevin Willard. So basically, the possession before that, the Iowa had the ball, and they were able to get to the foul line after Deshaun Harris-Smith fouled, and they were able to tie the game. And then they were able to tie the game at 67 points. And then Jahmir Young gets the ball with 21 seconds left. Kevin Willard calls the timeout, draws up a beautiful set for Jahmir Young. I mean, the reason it was so beautiful to me because it was so simple. I was surprised by Iowa's strategy at the end of the game. Tie game, and they just let Jahmir Young play completely 1v1, which if you would have told Kevin Willard that he's just going to be able to play 1v1, it was easy. They set him a pick. He got the switch onto a guy that didn't have as quick feet as Jahmir Young at all. They got him definitely on the right guy, and it was the easiest probably shot he had all game. He just went right by the guy. There was not really any help, and he just made the left-hand layup. It was like almost too simple. I was like, this is the type of stuff that usually happens on the other end of things. This is what usually happens against Maryland. But it was a really big-time play for Jahmir Young. Even though the shot wasn't like the hardest shot, Young has ice waters in his veins because he hit multiple shots down the stretch. It wasn't just that shot to say that this guy's not human. The game winner wasn't the most impressive shot at all. The most impressive shot was that three he made to go up by one with about 38 seconds left. Huge three down the stretch. And Jahmir Young's a solid shooter, but I don't like to say he's like an elite shooter of the ball in terms of his three-point shot. But it seems like when the game's on the line these past couple of games, it seems like he just turns on a different kind of gear in terms of his three-point shooting. Now, we haven't seen Jahmir Young quite end the games over. There's been a couple games where it's been close against there's a couple games that stand out where it came down to the last possession and Maryland had the ball and Jahmir Young wasn't able to tie it or wasn't able to take the lead. But every single game, basically, he's been the one down the stretch with the last couple of minutes where he's able to get us into the game, keep us into the game, continuing to hit 3-point shots, 2-point shots, get to the rim. It didn't matter. He was able to keep us in the game. But he hasn't always been able to finish it off completely. But tonight, he was able to finish off. But that three with 38 seconds left, that was huge. That was like, this guy is on another level. Like, this guy is not human right now. Basketball players sometimes hit this stride where it's like, wow, he's doing stuff that he's might not be doing normally. He has confidence that he's not really supposed to have right now. And confidence is a big thing, and I think Jahmir Young has it right now. He's the confidence he can make any shot. He's hitting shots. He's doing pretty much everything for this Maryland team overall. But he finishes with 22 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He did everything. He rebounds the ball, and he's definitely like one of the smaller guys out there. I think he's probably the second smallest guy on the court, but 7 rebounds is 7 rebounds. He's getting on the glass. 4 assists is also very solid, and of course, the 22 points. So he's doing everything. He's putting up a balanced performance, and one of the most impressive stats that you read are these couple of things about clutch points. He leads the country in clutch points, the commentator said, which is an impressive stat on its own. And he had 8 clutch points at the end of the game last night against Iowa, which is a pretty big-time thing to do. So clutch points is basically when the game's on the line and it's like going back and forth, that type of thing. You guys get the basic idea of what clutch points are with like the last 2-3 minutes of the game. So one thing is that we always give him the ball and we trust him to create basically all of our offense, not just throughout the game, but down the stretch in terms of in the clutch. It's usually all Jahmir Young. So definitely credit to him for having the most clutch points in the country. And then that's not it. He also leads the country in points per game against quad 1 opponents. Quad 1 opponents is something that you hear usually when you're talking about March Madness. You talk about how many quad 1 wins do you have, which is really important to do. You need to get quad 1 wins and to be able to get into March if you're a team like Maryland. But so those are against the best teams in the country, and he leads the country in points per game against quad 1 opponents, which is pretty big time stat. That means he's showing up for the big games. See, here's my thing about Julian Reese. Julian Reese had a good game last night, and I will talk about him in a second. But there's been games where Julian Reese doesn't show up in the big games, like the Purdue game, like the UCLA game. But Jahmir Young, he shows up against the quad 1 opponents, and that's why I think this season is so elite. That's why I think he's not human right now. I think he's doing things that I haven't really seen a Maryland guard be able to do. I know we have some great ones, but I'm telling you, this is on another level, and it's going to take a while to kind of acknowledge that. And once the season's over, we'll go back and really see and compare it to the other ones. But this guy, what he's doing is absolutely not win. And the Terps win 69-67 because of this man, Jahmir Young. Obviously, it was a team effort on the road. You travel up to Iowa, not an easy place to play. They had a good amount of fans in there. They're a good team. So obviously, I want to emphasize that it's definitely a team effort, and the coaching staff did a pretty good job, I thought. But we don't have a chance without this guy. I don't know what a record is without this guy. And I don't know if you can take one player away from anywhere in the country and say that, oh, like that team goes more downhill than Maryland. They got to be up there for, if you take one player away for your team, that team is not going to look nearly as good. I mean, I'm sure there's some other ones, but I think of Illinois. Illinois was still winning games without arguably their best player, Terrence Shannon, who's now back. They were still winning games. They were still keeping that top 10 ranking within them. I think of other teams that are still able to win games without their best player. But I don't think we're anything without Jahmir Young right now. And a lot of the credit goes to him because what he's doing is very cool. It's a very cool thing. You don't usually get to watch this type of player that's clutch like this, that can score like this, that a defensive game plan really can't stop. And another thing that you have to add on is he didn't start well. He started off very slow. He didn't shoot the ball well in the first half at all. And he still had the confidence to come back in the second half, and he wasn't going to let it impact the rest of his game, the slow start that he had. So overall, he was able to put up 22 with the slow start. He was able to hit a buzzer beater with the slow start. He was able to win the game for the Terps with the slow start. That's the mark of a good player. When you don't play well in the first quarter, the first half, whatever sport it is, I don't care, football, basketball, whatever it is, baseball, if you don't play well in the first inning, if you don't pitch well in the first couple of innings, then you come back and you're able to still find a way to win the game, or quarterback doesn't throw well in the first 3 quarters and has a couple of picks and you're still able to win the game. That's the mark of an elite player. And we got to start talking about this guy. He has to be recognized with the best this year. I don't know how much else you can really do in the season. I know there's some great guards in the country, but is he an All-American? He's definitely all Big Ten. I think he deserves it all right now. I don't know many guys in the country that are really better than this guy, but Jahmir Young isn't human. What he's doing is just completely different. The big three can keep this season alive. I will tell you about that after this ad from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. The big three can keep this season alive for the Maryland Terrapins. Jahmir Young, Donta Scott, Julian Reese is the big three right now for the Maryland Terrapins. And they each played a huge part in us winning that game. And there's no doubt in my mind when all three of those guys play, this Terps team can really beat anybody and should win games. Maybe you slip one here or there, but if all three of those guys, Donta Scott, Jahmir Young, Julian Reese, all play well and all put up the type of statistical performance that they put against Iowa, I don't see why we don't win games. I don't see why we can't win the majority of the games that we play. Now, the trick is usually Julian Reese is off or Donta Scott has a bad game or something like that. Usually it's not all three. Usually it's about two of them, 2.5 maybe. If you want to say, oh, it was an okay game by one of them. But when all three of those guys play well, and I know the supporting cast isn't the best, I think we win games. And I like to call it the three-headed dragon because these are our most experienced guys. These are the guys that are going to allow us to win games. And I really do think that we can beat just about anybody if we play well. And no, it's not guaranteed to win. We still have to play well defensively. We still got to have some support. But when Jahmir Young's on his game and then Julian Reese is on his game and then Donta Scott's shooting the ball well, we're a really good basketball team. We're really hard to beat. But the trick is that we all have to be on. But last night against Iowa, everyone was on in the three-headed dragon. Donta Scott, credit to Donta Scott. He has found his rhythm as a player. He has hit a different stride over these last 4 or 5 games. He's just playing like a different guy out there. 14 points last night, and he's shooting the 3 ball really well. Donta Scott's game has transitioned. He's probably right now, I'd say, our best 3-point shooter right now, I would say. Jahmir Young's kind of interesting because Jahmir Young can hit some crazy shots at the end of the game, but I think Donta Scott right now is our best three-point shooter. What he's doing is pretty cool shooting the ball overall. But he went 2 for 5 tonight, and I'll take that from the three-point line. I'll take 40%. You take that every single time. 2 for 5 is exactly where we want to be for Donta Scott. But his game has definitely transitioned from when he was a freshman. He could not shoot the ball like he is now. And credit to him for being in the gym, but 14 points for him, perfect spot for him. And the fact that he was our third leading scorer at 14 points, that's how the Terps are going to win game. But we have to remember that this Iowa team is known to be bad at defense. And one of the worst really in the Big Ten in terms of giving up points. So can you do that against a better team? That's the question for Donta Scott. But I do think he can. I do think he's capable, but we got to keep seeing it. He's been doing it in the last 5 games. But if 14 points for your third leading scorer definitely will get the job done. And then Julian Reese, the second head of the three-headed monster. I like to think of Donta Scott and Julian Reese right now as the two outside guys on that Dragon. He had a big game with 17 points, 9 rebounds. Maybe the most impressive part, though, was that he had 5 blocks, and those blocks were needed. These blocks really, I thought, kind of won us the game. If you want to talk about Jahmir Young's shot at the end, how about the Julian Reese blocks? If he only blocks 3 shots, which is still a really good number to have, I don't know if we win the game. So Julian Reese had a really impressive showing on the defensive side of the ball with those 5 blocks. And then also 17 points is 17 points for Julian Reese. I want to say he went, I think it was 5 for 8 from the free throw line, which isn't like amazing, but we'll also take it for him. But 17 points is exactly where we want Julian Reese. If Donta Scott drops 14 and then Julian Reese is the second leading scorer with 17, we can win games. It might be close, it might be tight, but we can definitely win games if those two are putting up 14 and 17 were in a good place. But he had a very nice game, and we know that Julian Reese is sometimes up and down. Sometimes he has it, sometimes it feels like he doesn't. But the two outside heads of the Dragon, they both played very well last night. And then the middle head of the Dragon, the biggest head, the one that breathes fire, and the one that's the scariest, Jahmir Young. What he is doing on the year been truly remarkable. We already talked about him, but he kept our season alive tonight. The big 3 overall kept our season alive tonight, and Jahmir Young had a little bit of help. And even though we still barely won the game, it's just that tad you need to get over that help, that little bit of help that Jahmir Young needs from Julian Reese, from Donta Scott, to be able to get us over the hump overall. And I also want to add in Jahmir Young. Jahmir Young, I've been calling for him to start. And no, he's not part of the Dragon. He's not part of the 3-headed Dragon. But Jahmir Young, he just is doing everything that I want him to do. And I think you got to continue to start him. I don't know if you take Deshaun Harris-Smith out. I don't know if you take out Jordan Geronimo. But there's no way that you look at that game and say Jahmir Young shouldn't start. He had 6 points, and it wasn't like he did anything amazing. He turned over the ball a couple times, but he was able to create offense and relieve some pressure off of Jahmir Young and Donta Scott and Julian Reese. You could tell he has confidence right now, Jahmir Young does. He's shooting the 3 ball pretty well. He's able to make shots. I think he's the starter that we need. I think it improves the lineup a ton with him in there for Deshaun or for Jordan Geronimo. I just think we get so much more offensive versatility. I think we're able to do a lot more with him in the lineup overall rather than somebody else in the lineup overall. But I love having Jahmir Young in the starting lineup. But this 3-headed Dragon can keep this season alive. Add on whoever. This season, it's not dead yet. I said this was a do-or-die game. It's going to start with Jahmir Young, Donta Scott, and Julian Reese, our experienced guys, our best players, our most skilled guys right now. It starts with them. They can keep our season alive. They can keep it going. We're going to go as far as those 3 go overall, but it's not quite over yet. It's not like we're in a good spot, but it's not quite over yet. A March Madness bid isn't impossible. It's not likely. We have to win a lot of games. We definitely have to start really, really winning games on the road. At home, it doesn't matter, but it's definitely not out of things yet. Maryland showed a lot of heart and grit last night. I will tell you about that right now. The Terps showed a lot of heart and grit last night. I have to give it to them. When we win games, it feels like it's never easy. It feels like these one-possession games going back from the start of the season, it didn't matter. It just feels like when we win games, it's not usually easiest. Think about the UCLA game. I don't know, what was the number? We were probably up like 18, maybe 20 points, 15 points at a certain point, and they came back to make it close. Thankfully, Jahmir Young had other plans like he usually does. I think about the UAB game and the UAB and Davidson game, 2 games we lost that we should have won. We just never make it easy. I think of other games that we've won in Big Ten play. Illinois, it wasn't an easy game to win. When we win games, it's usually not easy. It's usually not just like, oh, we won. The Penn State game was also close that we won earlier in Big Ten play. It's not easy for us to win games overall. But we still, when we do win them, it's usually heart and grit. We're definitely not the most offensively talented team in the country. We definitely aren't going to just purely outscore you. I think the identity of this team is grit. We were down 6 at half on the road, which isn't like anything crazy in basketball, as you guys know. Like, you can come back down 10 points, 15 points. You can do some pretty big things in basketball. So 6 isn't anything to go crazy about, but it's still 6 on the road against Iowa, a team that was already 5.5 favorites. So Maryland coming out in the second half down 6 and coming out and was able to make the game a lot closer after trailing a lot of the first half is something that is pretty impressive, and it's pretty cool for the Terps to do that. I think they showed heart and grit. And they had a scoring drought in the first half for 5 minutes, couldn't score. So, and they still found a way to win. We haven't won a one-possession game all year, and for them to be able to win that today or win that yesterday, it's hard. It's grit. I see guys like Deshaun Harris-Smith. I see guys like Jahmir Young. I see guys like Jordan Geronimo. Jordan Geronimo turned over the ball one time, and he sprinted all the way back on defense. It was a really nice hustle play. I was pretty mad at them. I was like, dang, he just turned over the ball. He sprints back and blocks the player. Julian Reese blocks. There's a lot of heart and grit on this team, even if it doesn't quite show up in the winning category. This team is putting in effort. I do say they do try. They do try overall. I see heart. I see grit. And then also, I think it's interesting because the defense travels. Defense, a lot of it is about heart. It's about just trying hard, which goes back into just the effort, the grit, the heart that Maryland Terrapins show. But defense travels in the Big Ten. You need defense. And Iowa was one of the best offensive teams in the Big Ten, and Maryland was able to find a way to slow them down. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to slow them down, and it's not like we held them under 60, but we were able to do just enough to win this game. So I think Maryland showed heart and grit on the road. We get another road win, which we couldn't say much last year, and these are big road games. You're talking about Illinois. You're talking about this Iowa team. These are big road games, but definitely a very good win for the Maryland Terrapins. But Jahmir Young is not human at all. Good heart, good grit from this team. And I can't wait to see us play next week and see what we're able to do. That's all I have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.